You know, when we talk about these difficult situations, these shootings, sometimes people forget. Just as the case with George Floyd, it's not just about that individual. There's a family that is grieving, right? Rayshard Brooks was a brother, a father, a son, a cousin. There's a family that is grieving, and it is important to keep them in your mind and in your heart during this very, very difficult time. And we're very lucky joining us on the line right now, the sister to Rayshard Brooks, Danielle Barbine, joining us on the line. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Danielle, I guess my first question is, how is the family holding up? I can't imagine how difficult this has been for you and your family. How are you guys holding up during this very difficult time?
It's very hard. It's very hard. I've been to work. I started my new job yesterday. It was difficult. When I say difficult, it was very hard to walk through those doors.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that encouraged me to take this job. And I was supposed to call him yesterday and tell him that I started. I had a good day. I like it. It's just very hard for my whole entire family. You know, we're all the way in Ohio, and his side of the family is also in Georgia. It's just hard. It's just hard to deal with. It's hard to cope. It's hard to talk about it. It's hard to even look at my father face to face because Rayshard looks just like our father.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And the fact that this is such a public story too, that you're not really able to grieve privately, I can't even imagine how difficult that is. I'm so sorry. I have to ask you this, and I know this is a tough question to ask you, especially during this time. But what went through your mind when you see this video? Because, you know, the first 28 minutes, we're all watching it. We don't know your brother, right? We don't know him personally. But we see a man who's being very respectful to the police. We see a man who even said that. He said, listen, I respect what you guys are doing. I respect you guys are doing your job. What do you make of that? Because the first 28 minutes, everything seems to be going just fine. And then all of a sudden, in a split second, everything changes. What do you make of that, and why do you think your brother got so agitated all of a sudden? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's not the first video that I saw, but out of all of the videos that I've seen, Rayshard Brooks was scared. He was scared. Maybe he grabbed him rough or too rough. I have no idea, but I do know my brother. He's a very respectable guy, and you could have asked him just to get in the car without even handcuffing him, and he would have done that. To see that on video, and this can be anybody's relative, anybody's brother, sister, or friend, what they do by body language or communicating, it's very demanding. You can move the wrong way and be charged for resisting arrest. He was just trying to get home to his wife and his kids. But to see that is very disturbing because I know him. He's calm. He's laid back. Just watching the video, there's no words to explain what or how or why things happened the way that they did. But Rayshard Brooks, you can tell he was feared for his life. He was scared.
Right.
You know.
And Danielle, that's a big part of why we wanted you to come on, because the majority of America, they didn't know your brother. You did.
Right.
And I wanted you to share that with us. Now, I guess, you know, the part that that bothers me in some of these situations, as you know, Danielle, sadly, is that sometimes people will say things about your brother that probably are not true. They'll say things on social media or on the internet that are probably not true. So I want to be able to set the record straight with you right now because I trust you. And, you know, when people are saying that your brother had a criminal record, and there are some people that are saying that, I have no idea whether that's true or not. I don't know. And I'm not even saying that has anything to do with what took place that tragic night. Can you speak to that at all? Has he ever had issues with the law before? Can you shed some light on that?
I have never experienced him doing or committing any crime. I spent my last year with him. I mean, it was the first time that we met last year, and, you know, I'm blessed to have memories. But to answer your question, pertaining to his record, I don't know everything that's on his record, but I will say this. Everybody might have a record. It could be a driving ticket. It could be a speeding ticket, DUI. We sometimes, as young people, have charges that we don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as whatever he has on his record, how do we know that these charges are accurate?
Mm-hmm.
He's a good man, and I don't want to shame his name. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know,
I
everybody
that.
has a past, you know, and he was working towards something good to take care of his family outside of Atlanta. That's what we were working toward.
Understood. I just don't want people to put a false narrative out there, as you know, and say things that are not true. And that's why I ask you that question. What is justice for you and your family now? I mean, I would imagine you've spoken to other members of your family. What do you guys want to see happen here?
The laws need to change with the police first. The racism. I am biracial. I lived a hard life. Maybe not as hard as Rayshard, but I lived a hard life. You're treated different. You're looked different. You can only get certain jobs. I mean, you're judged on your character, on how you look nowadays, and it's 2020. There's no set 100% race around here anymore. We're all mixed. So I don't see why it should be a black or a white thing, or this person has a tattoo, so we look at them as ghetto or drug dealer, or
right.
Like just any random thing. You don't know a person until you sit down and get to know a person. Don't judge people, because that's a form of disrespect. Get to know a person, you know. Like I missed out on a lot of jobs, you know. So
right.
I think that dealing with the police, communicating, approaching in a different way, letting the person know that you're safe in my hands right now. Regardless of your crime, you know, you don't want to fear the police. They are here to protect and serve, but as you see, they are killing our young people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to put words to it at this point, because shoulda, woulda, coulda isn't great right now. It doesn't help my situation or anybody else's who's grieving with the same situation or different. It's about how they talk to you. It's about how they look at you. I mean, just handing your ID out the window the wrong way. Like, what if you had to reach for it in the glove box? Are you able or liable to be shot?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot that I could say, you know. I'm devastated on how they treated my brothers.
Well, you're the type of people that I want to be talking to right now about these very issues. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Danielle Barbine. She is the sister to the late Rayshard Brooks, and we're speaking to her right now. Do you think, you know, I don't even know how to ask this question, but when you look at what happened to George Floyd, we're talking only a few weeks ago, did you ever think that now you would be a part of this, that your family sadly would be a part of this? And you'd be talking to us right now about these issues because, you know, like I said, this George Floyd stuff just happened a few weeks ago. As you know, there's Black Lives Matter protests throughout the country. I mean, did you ever think in your worst nightmare that it could happen to you? It could happen to your family?
I never would have thought about it. I never would have even questioned it because of who he is and what he stands for. My father, after they laid George Floyd to rest at peace, my dad had made a comment. He was like, man, I would never want to have to go through this.
Oh, boy.
and here we are a few days later.
Ugh, that is terrible. You know, I will say this. You know, speaking of George Floyd's family, obviously they didn't want protests going sour. They didn't want to see the riots and burning down of buildings. I would imagine your family doesn't want that either, and I don't want to speak for you because that's why I'm asking you. But, you know, somebody burns down the Wendy's. I'm sure you would agree. Nobody in Wendy's killed your brother, right? I mean, they just simply called the police.
Right.
So I would imagine I would imagine you and your family don't hold any anger towards that person who called 911, right? I mean, you're not asking for that Wendy's to be burned down, right? That's not what your family wants, I would imagine, right?
No, sir. Not at all. We don't condone rioting and damaging our communities. We have to go back and clean what we have destroyed. So why do that?
Let me ask you this. And again, this might be a tough question for you to answer, and I'm not in law enforcement either. But obviously, I believe you when you say your brother was scared. Clearly, he was scared. I mean, based on his actions alone, he was scared. He didn't want to be arrested, and you know, obviously, he made some mistakes. I think we all could agree on that. But the question is, what should the officer have done? Now, obviously, your opinion, and I totally understand where you're coming from. You and your family should not have been shot and killed. So my question to you, and I would imagine you've talked to your family about this, what do you think that officer should have done? Should they have just let your brother go and then maybe catch up to him later? What do you think should have been the right resolution to what took place that night?
Well, there's a lot of answers. Number one, you knew who he was when you ran his name. And if I'm not mistaken, they had him move his car drunk.
Right, that's weird.
A no-no.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I agree.
Lord. Oh, God. I'm so lost right now. Man.
Take your time. I understand. Take your time.
I think that they should have parked the car, locked it, escorted him home to his sister's house, hotel, or wherever he wanted to go. Drop him off. And if that wasn't an option, he could have walked.
Right.
After the fight or whatever, the struggle, after he ran, you should have just let him continue to run. You had the car. You had his name. You had everything that you needed. You could have posted his face on the local news. You could have and may have got him at a later date. Rayshard Brooks would still be alive if they conducted themselves better than what they did.
So you have some people, and I say some people, that say what got your brother shot is not the running, is not the scuffle, is not, you know, being intoxicated. But what got your brother in grave danger and shot was when he turned around with the taser and shot it at the officer. What would you say to that?
What I would say about that, see, this is where I get angry, and I'm sorry. If people who are watching the video, they had shot the taser while he was fighting. If someone had something in your face, your natural reaction would be to move it, grab it, slap it. So he grabbed it. And as he took off running, they were still shooting that taser.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, he was feared for his life, and then you keep chasing me, and you're still shooting the taser at me. Mm-hmm. These officers are trained and shot before they get their badge. I'm sure of that, with the taser. So they know what it feels like. So you shot my brother in the back when you could have let it alone a long time ago before the struggle even happened by letting him go.
Yeah,
so,
and that's a valid point.
You know,
I see what you're saying. That's a valid point. It's a natural reaction. You want to defend yourself. I get where you're coming from. Now, there are also some people that are taking it a step further that didn't even know your brother that are saying maybe if he wasn't intoxicated, he wouldn't have even become aggressive in the first place. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, I have to be in the middle of all of this. What officer can't outrun a drunk person?
Yeah, that's a valid point.
He had remained calm for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, what was he being detained for?
Right.
After you let him move the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so many scenarios
there's a lot of different
how
ways.
things go.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways this could have ended. I totally agree. Again, this is one of those questions that I have to ask you, and it might be a tough one for you to answer. But the officer who killed your brother, his name is Garrett Rolfe. If you had a chance to sit with him right now face to face and talk to him, what would you ask him and what would you say to him?
Everything about this, the taser, is non-lethal. Even if you had shot, why wasn't it shot below the waist? At least he probably would have lived 9 times out of 10. The thing that I would like to say to him is that he ruined my family, and he has a huge family. We have friends and everybody. Like, this has affected not only my family, his wife and his kids, but the officer that did this. What about him? Shouldn't he have to use his money that he invested with his job to help pay for what's going on? Maybe pay for the Wendy? It's his fault. He took things a little further than what he should have. His judgment, it's just not fair.
Danielle, do you think he should go to jail?
Yes, sir, I do. Anytime you shoot a person in the back, yes, I do. Whether you're a regular person, police, I don't care who you are. If you shot him in the back, you should go to jail.
And I understand that. Sure, and I understand that no amount of years, if he does get jail time, will bring your brother back. I totally get that. But what would be sufficient for you? And again, might be a difficult question for you to answer. How many years would you and your family be at least content with? How many years do you think Officer Garrett Rolfe should go to jail in your eyes?
For the rest of his life. My brother is gone. His kids doesn't have a father. And we hear all the time, black men are not in their child's life. Well, this one was.
Understood. Well, Danielle, let me say this in closing. I'm so sorry. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm so sorry for what you and your family are going through. No family should ever have to go through this, especially in the public eye. You're not allowed to grieve privately. You have to grieve publicly. I'm sorry for the pain you and your family have had to go through. Thoughts and prayers with you and your family. And I hope that you, in your eyes, you get justice. And I appreciate you taking the time to join us on the show. And perhaps at a later date, if this officer is charged with something, maybe we can have you on again to talk about that, if that's okay with you. But thank you so much for coming on with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you again.
All right. Thank you.